This is CBC Vancouver News.
There are these underlying things that we need to get at. Otherwise, anything and everything that we're going to be doing is going to be, it's just Band-Aid work.
Growing calls for more security on public transit. What's needed to keep passengers safe? And
I was screaming, the dog was barking, lunging. It wasn't scared at all.
Coyote season. Authorities are warning Vancouver pet owners to stay away from this West Side park. Plus,
we hope some future medalists will be at this event today.
Scouting for potential. Young BC athletes step up for their shot at fulfilling their Olympic dreams. Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. There are growing calls for heightened safety measures on public transit in Metro Vancouver. We told you about the early morning stabbing yesterday in Surrey, the third in 2 weeks. Our Georgie Smythe has more reaction and possible solutions.
For Vancouver public transit riders, another random attack has only raised anxiety and calls for solutions to the spate of violence on the system.
I think I'm trying not to make eye contact with people and just sort of have a little bubble around myself. Yeah.
I see you've got a big hood on.
Yeah,
Is it?
Thick material, knife can't penetrate as easily.
Is that honestly what goes through your mind?
It is, sadly.
I feel some threatened because I hear the news, so yeah.
This weekend, another stabbing on Metro Vancouver Transit, the third this month. While the victim is expected to recover, it comes just days after 17-year-old Ethan Bepflug was stabbed to death on a bus in Surrey.
I haven't read any articles or watched any of the news or anything. I can't. It makes it real, and I don't want it to be real.
Police have promised to boost patrols around transit hubs. It's a tactic that did bring violent incidents down on the TTC in Toronto. As many cities across the country grapple with violence on their transit systems, there's a growing awareness of how gaps in mental health services might play a role.
The system itself has become a de facto shelter, a social service agency, and people are, I'll say, flocking to the transit because we don't have enough shelter space.
Researchers say helping people in crisis is key to helping others stay safe.
There are these underlying things that we need to get at. Otherwise, anything and everything that we're going to be doing is going to be, it's just Band-Aid work, and we're not going to solve any problems.
In BC, transit unions are calling on the province to step in and make a plan to solve this crisis for the long term. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
A driver has been killed in a car crash in Langley this morning. Mounties say it happened at 3:40 in the morning at 200th Street and 68th Avenue. The driver was going northbound into oncoming traffic. The car then crashed into a pedestrian overpass and became wedged. It subsequently burst into flames. Police are now investigating the cause of the crash. Langley RCMP is asking for anyone with dashcam footage of the area around 3:30 in the morning to call them. A warning tonight for Vancouver pet owners. Stay away from Trafalgar Park, just south of Kitsilano in Arbutus Ridge. BC Conservation Service says there have been several reports of coyotes biting dogs and following people in the area. As Janella Hamilton reports, it was a close call for one dog walker.
The coyote had maybe heard us and turned around and came charging at us.
Just before 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, Ava Lund was walking one of her client's dogs near Valley Drive in King Edward Avenue when a coyote she describes as large came running at them full speed.
It came right up to us. I thought that it was going to bite me or the dog that I was walking. I was screaming, the dog was barking, lunging. It wasn't scared at all.
Lund is one of several people in that neighborhood to report a close encounter with a coyote. BC conservation officers say they've received multiple reports of coyotes biting dogs and following people, prompting a warning to steer clear of the area and specifically Trafalgar Park in Arbutus Ridge.
I had been speaking to neighbors in the area that morning too, and they were saying that it had become a problem here. Last weekend, one of my clients was walking around here and one of the coyotes grabbed her dog's jacket.
In a statement, the Vancouver Park Board says it's denning season for coyotes. The animals may act more boldly as they protect their dens where their pups are born. Trafalgar Park is popular with animals and kids. Conservation officers are reminding everyone to take precautions.
Push this to the side and then you're able to spray.
Lund has bought a dog and coyote deterrent spray and plans to attach a whistle to her keychain for future walks.
Yeah, I'm a little bit anxious to be out in the area right now.
The park board says if you see a coyote, do not approach it, face the coyote and slowly back away. If the animal approaches, make yourself big, stand tall with your arms stretched and yell. Do not turn your back or run, as coyotes have a natural instinct to chase what they believe is prey, and always report the encounter to 311. In August 2021, a coyote bit a 5-year-old child in Stanley Park, one of several attacks in the same area that summer. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Family, friends, and fans gathered at the Commodore today to celebrate the life of broadcast icon Red Robinson.
What brings everyone together here is the love that they felt from Red. Red, if you hear the commonality in stories, it wasn't about Red the icon, it was about Red the person who seemed to care about everybody and everyone's careers.
The longtime broadcaster, show promoter, and advocate for rock and roll in Vancouver died April 1st, just days after his 86th birthday. The BC Entertainment Hall of Fame credits him as the first DJ in Canada to play rock and roll music on a regular basis. Robinson was inducted to the Canadian Broadcast Hall of Fame in 1997 and the Rockabilly Hall of Fame in 2000, retiring from radio in 2007. The city of Vancouver declared March 30th, 2017, Red Robinson Day in honor of his 80th birthday to recognize his work in bringing some of the biggest acts of the 50s and 60s to the city. Robinson helped bring Elvis Presley to Vancouver. He went on to interview the Beatles and even called Johnny Cash a friend. A coroner's inquest into the death of a man who was killed in a violent confrontation with Vancouver police begins tomorrow. The inquiry is trying to find answers around how exactly Miles Gray died in 2015. Police were called to a suburb in Burnaby for a dispute over lawn watering the day that Gray died. Officers arrived and a fight broke out. Gray was left with injuries so severe, forensic experts were not able to confirm what killed him. Officers refused to cooperate with the watchdog investigation into what happened. They're set to appear at the inquest along with some of Gray's family. 3 days of meetings for the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities have just wrapped up. Delegates from more than 50 regions gathered in Nanaimo for the AGM. As Claire Palmer reports, the final day focused on reconciliation and how municipalities play a role in reconciliation.
Reconciliation and relationship building. That was the focus on day 3 for delegates at the Convention for Island and Coastal Communities.
With regard to all those opposed.
Representatives from over 50 regions gathered in Nanaimo to listen, learn, and take action.
It was amazing. The room was just intent on listening to what was said, and there was inspiration that came from the speeches that came from the panel, and really looking forward to reconciliation.
Panelists gave insights on how local governments can start conversations with their Indigenous neighbors, as well as how difficult the road has been for First Nations and how municipalities can finance reconciliation. These are options that all communities possess, both big and small. Participants say it was an opportunity to collaborate with counterparts from across the island.
The diversity of motions that we explored was fantastic. So everything from housing to water conservation, forestry, and it was really insightful to talk to different colleagues from across the region to get their different perspectives.
Among the dozens of resolutions passed, Teal lobbied eagerly for the province to give municipalities the power to implement traffic speed cameras. His resolution from Saanich will be brought to the Union of BC Municipalities for further consideration. Other resolutions ranged from extreme weather response to housing.
There was a whole block of amazing resolutions, some really fulsome debate, and I was really excited to see colleagues from across the region.
Next year's convention will be held in Victoria. It will be the 75th edition of the convention. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
More than 30,000 runners took to the soggy streets of Vancouver this morning for the annual Sun Run.
Just feels good. Every year, part of a big movement. Feel tired, but feel good.
It's amazing. Yeah. A lot of fun.
Really good time. Her first time.
Your first time?
Yeah. Good. Metamorphosis. Great run. Little bit of rain.
Oh, looked like more than a little bit. That was some of the happy runners at the finish line today. John Gay won the men's category in a time of 29 minutes and 40 seconds. Leslie Sexton won the women's category with a time of 32 minutes and 22 seconds. The Sun Run began in 1985 and is now the largest running race in terms of participants in the country. Several hundred BC athletes also had a shot to move a step closer to the Olympic dream this weekend. At a scouting competition held at UBC on Sunday, our Saurabh Sandhu has that story.
For these hopeful athletes, it's a chance to show off their skills for a shot at one day making it to the Olympics.
You're going up against some of the best people in Canada, and so you need to be at your best.
More than 350 athletes from Greater Vancouver showcased their skills at UBC's War Memorial Gymnasium. It's a part of RBC's training ground, a program designed to scout Canada's Olympic talent.
The goal is to hopefully see them wearing the maple leaf for Canada in the Olympics.
The program tests athletes on 4 criteria: speed, power, strength and endurance. And the results can mean life-changing opportunities for these athletes.
We've developed a series of tests that we put the athletes through, and we collect that data. And then we look to see if there's things in the data that tell us that the athlete might be better suited to a particular sport.
The program partners with several national sports organizations. Over the last 7 years, more than 1,600 athletes have been identified. Several have made it to Olympics. Gold medalist Avalon Vastanese was one of them.
I was already in rowing, but I was looking for more support, specifically financial support, because obviously being an athlete can be an expensive thing. And when you're also trying to balance school on top of it, it's a lot.
17 scouting events will be held across the country, and the best athletes will be invited to national final to be held in fall.
The key here is we're uncovering potential, and we have no idea who's coming through the door today. We hope some future medalists will be at this event today.
Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
And the Sakura Days Japan Fair was back at Van Dusen Botanical Garden to celebrate spring and the beauty of cherry blossoms. We were there earlier to take a stroll. Take a look.
This is the 18th year of the festival, and this event has been going pretty early. I want to say this is the 12th year for this event itself, and it's sort of steadily grown every year. But the main idea is that it's all Canadian Japanese and Japanese companies, artists, vendors, all full of Japanese traditional culture as well as contemporary. The origins of this event is to, the cherry blossoms were a gift from the people of Japan, so several different cities in Japan in the 1930s gifted some cherry blossoms to Vancouver to commemorate the Canadian Japanese who had died in World War I. So this event is to acknowledge that original gift and sort of that ongoing friendship between Vancouver and Japan, but also to celebrate the culture that gives us these trees and all the different culture that goes around that, from haiku to hanami to different sort of cultural things that are connected to spring happening. Kind of doesn't feel too much like spring yet today, but certainly the blossoms are telling us that.
It's wet but beautiful. A Sunshine Coast woman woke up last Thursday to the sounds of a bold bandit in her yard. She found a thirsty bear devouring dozens of cans of soda she had left in the car.
It was about 3 in the morning, and my dog actually alerted me to something was out there. So I took a look outside and I saw the bear, and then later on looked at my security cameras and saw him enter the yard and smash the window really quickly. But yeah, he was in between my house and the car, and he was drinking massive amounts of soda.
And there was no hitting pause for that bear. Rosal watched from her balcony for over an hour as the bear made its way through 2 cases of Orange Crush, then moved on to Coke, root beer, and then finally diet soda. Out of 72 cans in the car, the bear drank 69, only leaving a few diet sodas behind.
I tried to get rid of him by throwing a bucket of cold water down on him, but that didn't seem to bother him at all. I tried reasoning with him. I explained to him how important the car was and that I had to go to work the next morning. That didn't seem to affect him whatsoever. So then I tried psyching him out by telling him I was a bear hunter, and that didn't do anything either. So I had to stand by and just watch him devour my car.
Russell says she deals with bears on a daily basis and is always hyper-vigilant about not leaving food in her car, but she never expected a bear to go after soda. She hopes her insurance will cover at least some of the damage to her car. Hockey Canada is getting its funding back after much controversy, but Ottawa says this isn't a blank check. Toxic behaviors and culture need to stop. More on what needs to change, that's after the break. Ottawa is restoring federal funding to Hockey Canada, ending a 10-month suspension. But Sport Minister Pascal Saint-Onge says this isn't a blank check with conditions that have to be met. Marina von Stackelberg has more.
It is all or nothing now. One game to go at the Women's Worlds.
As Canada's national women's hockey team played for gold, the announcement came. Hockey Canada will once again receive millions of taxpayer dollars.
When we suspended the funding for Hockey Canada, it was never a matter of doing it forever. It was so that the proper change was implemented in the organization.
Sports Minister Pascal St-Onge froze Hockey Canada's funding 10 months ago after the organization's top brass wouldn't answer questions at a parliamentary committee about how they had handled sexual assault allegations. It was revealed the organization used registration fees to settle a sexual assault case from 2018. In that incident, a young woman alleged 8 hockey players sexually assaulted her after a Hockey Canada gala.
It's not a blank check. We're going to ask them to report the situation constantly with Sport Canada. We want to make sure that they keep on going in the right direction.
To get its money back, Hockey Canada had to sign on with the new Sport Integrity Commissioner, which independently investigates abuse complaints. It also had to pass an audit to prove it didn't use government money to pay out settlements over the last 4 years. In a statement, Hockey Canada Board Chair Hugh Fraser writes, "Today marks an important milestone for Hockey Canada in our journey to earn and maintain the trust of Canadians. I also wish to stress that we still have work to do to change the culture of our sport." The head of Hockey Canada and the sport minister appeared side by side for a TSN interview against the backdrop of the women's game.
The optics aren't great. This is not the time to be rewarding Hockey Canada.
This sport expert says everyone's eyes will be on whether the organization follows through.
Sports Canada has been very good at establishing standards for funded sports bodies, but terrible at reviewing them for compliance.
To keep its funding, Hockey Canada must regularly update the federal government on the work it's doing to change its culture, bring in the recommendations of 2 reports, and promote the government's Safe Sports program for athletes. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that World Championship final did not go according to plan for Team Canada tonight. The women were tied with the U.S. with 4 minutes left, but that's when Team Canada found itself on the wrong end of a 5-on-3 power play.
That's why Haley Wynn, who's pinned up against the boards, Canada with control. Fast looking net front, she scores!
That put the Americans up by 1, and 27 seconds later, they scored again. That would be enough. Then they added an empty netter goal into the bargain. Final score, USA 6, Canada 3. Team Canada still wins, though, the silver medal. And there's a live shot of Harbour Centre on a damp night. Coming up after the break, more than 3 decades later, a Broadway classic disappears into the night. We'll have that story for you next.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
After 35 years, Broadway's longest-running show has taken its final bow. Phantom of the Opera is considered one of the original mega musicals. As Chris Reyes learned from the cast, the show's long run meant something more than just a steady companion during turbulent times.
Let your soul take you where you long to be.
There's no mistaking. Phantom of the Opera was born in the 80s. Lavish, dramatic, and over the top. What no one could have predicted back then, that the show would outlive that decade, and then some. Becoming a fixture in a fickle industry where shows can open and close in one season. Phantom's contemporaries on Broadway have long shut down. Cats, Les Mis.
I've been so fortunate to be a part of this, and I've loved it every step of the way.
Canadian actor Laird McIntosh played Phantom both on Broadway and in Toronto. The show's history has left a mark on his own life story.
I met my wife in this show. She's been in the show for almost 20 years now. A lot of the high points in my career have been as a result of being in this show.
Tonight, it all came to an end after more than 13,000 shows at the Majestic Theatre. For the performers, deep gratitude.
What are your parting words for this show?
I'm so grateful and for having this in my life and it being able to keep me here. Thank you for keeping the consistency in my life.
I've done a little bit over 1,200 shows, which as an opera singer would never, I mean, that's like a full career.
From opera singers to dancers to lighting technicians and crew, it takes 130 people to put on each performance. The show's producers have cited the pandemic's impact and the show's high cost as the main reasons for shutting it down. Audiences have responded, spiking ticket sales and giving Phantom its best weeks in 35 years.
You're going out with a bang.
Absolutely.
You're going out with a chandelier drop.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
But many say it's the kind of Broadway show that may never come back.
We will not see this again on Broadway. A show with a cast this size, with a crew this size, with a full orchestra this big, and with a gigantic set.
It's like I'm losing a part of my family, not to sound morbid, but it is a little bit like a death. This is so much more than just a job.
An exit as dramatic as its debut. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
That was very cool to even see behind the scenes. Thanks, Chris Reyes, for that. All right, that does it for this Sunday. Thank you, and I'll see you next weekend. Have a good one.